Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. Beautiful Tuesday morning it is. We are grateful to be rising and shining all the way from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. My name is Uyai Anekan, and this is Rise and Shine. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
And I am Frank Sizoyi. Glad to have you joined us. It's another interesting day. 28 days gone, few more days left, and we'll be jumping into the month of December. I do hope you're having an interesting time, and of course, you are taking the best care of yourself as much as you can. But this is Rise and Shine, and we're here to talk Nigeria, and of course, the world by extension, as everything that happens from all around us has a way of coming back to affect our collective growth and development as a people. Of course, on Talking Nigeria, we'll be looking at a lot of stories this morning, but we encourage you to join the conversations on our Facebook page across different social media platforms, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng, to catch up.
Some of the things we have on the table, Rise and Shine, this morning, we're looking at the aviation sector, where the Minister Festus Keyamo is summoning heads of agencies within the sector for a tete-a-tete. Of course, we've recently heard a lot of concerns with regards to safety coming out of the aviation sector, hence the summoning. We also see here, due to the rift that's been going on in Ondo State, there is a proposed meeting of lawmakers today which may see the declaration of Ayede Tiwa as acting governor. These are some of the conversations we'll be looking into today, and looking at human development and some of the things that Nigerians are doing. For the Guinness World Record, we have a young woman in the name of Enyola who is washing for several hours and has just surpassed her 50-hour mark. Lots of Nigerians are doing things. Remember, if Mr. President said he wants to be on GWR, imagine how much more Nigerians are going to get in that. Of course, I'm still talking aviation also this morning. We see the fact that Festus Keyamo is saying with regards to Nigeria Air, the flight, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to make a decision. We're going to have details of that coming up shortly on Rise and Shine this morning. Of course, also still looking into the judiciary. There's a lot of concerns and a lot of conversation coming out there, but we see the CJN vowing to ensure Supreme Court gets 21 justices. Of course, a problem of personnel deficit there. Quite a number of things. I think Francis will just take us through the rest of the things that we have.
Well, of course, it seems like the former or the ex-INEC chairman, Jega, is still in the talking phase. He's also said at this point President Ahmed Bola Tinubu needs to review the appointment of resident electoral commissioners in order to ensure that the people trust the institution. Of course, we will also be looking at a comment coming from Justice Ariwola, which has also urged members of the judiciary to maintain fairness and equity in the distribution, or should we say in the discharge of their duties. It's also stated that the judiciary is not going to stand by and declare its verdict based on the social media sensation or based on public opinions, but rather based on the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. A lot of conversations we will be having this morning. Of course, we will also be talking about the 2024 appropriation bill, where the FEC has approved 27.5 trillion naira. Of course, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is going to present that budget tomorrow, being Wednesday, to the National Assembly. Recall, of course, COVID-19 for a developing story has been a conversation. The House of Reps had moved some time back, promising to probe. Now we see that the full probing is beginning in earnest, and the National Assembly seeks to find out from the MDAs exactly how those funds were utilized. A lot more of this will be coming your way on Rise and Shine. But of course, we head out to our very first, the flash stories.
Rise and Shine. Rise and Shine.
On our flash news this morning, we are going to the very top where we're looking at the aviation sector. The Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, of course, as someone heads of aviation agencies over some rising safety concerns. He intends to meet them to discuss the recent accidents in the sector. Of course, he is the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, and we're seeing that due to some recurring safety issues in the industry, the minister is calling in to look into this particular issue. Now, the agencies include the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, Federal Airport Authority, Nigeria, FAN, the Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau, NSIB, and the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA. Now, the minister is looking at recent accidents in the sector, and also will brief the press on the outcome of the deliberation to avert such occurrences. Now, of course, there was another issue with another flight on Sunday. The NUA 0504 from Lagos Airport on Sunday, when some Abuja-bound passengers were flown to Asaba Airport. I remember that particular news making the round. And then we also see that the cabin crew, upon landing in Asaba, told the passengers they had arrived at Abuja Airport, creating confusion among the passengers. Now, the airline later blamed the weather for that particular very, very expensive detour in the journey of, people that were on board. So we are seeing the fact that there's been some kind of confusion. In the last 1 month, we've reported about 2 to 3 near accidental experiences in the aviation sector. Then this one on Sunday, where we had passengers heading to the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, but were rather delivered in the airport in Asaba. And first of all, it comes off laughable. Like, this is where people were boarding to, and then next thing they're in another direction. Weather issues. Were they not able to communicate with the tower? What exactly? And at what point didn't they communicate this to with the attendants, people on the flight? So that's a rather serious issue, and really does need the whole house to sit down together. I don't know how much Festus Keyamo has sat in with the entire aviation team since becoming minister to, brush up certain issues. But we know that, like, this Yuletide season, there's going to be a very high demand of, flight activity. And it's important that the sector is grounded and ready for the influx of activities that we'll be having in the season that we're coming upon.
Well, of course, it's not a funny incident for you to board your flight and then you know where you are headed, and unfortunately you don't get to arrive at that destination and you're taken to a different destination. But of course, not holding forward for the airline at this point, but if we had to go by the explanation that has been given, that at every point in time the control tower and the pilots were communicating, and the pilots were fully aware of the detour as a result of the weather conditions. But of course, the airline has given what transpired as a result of miscommunication on the part of the cabin crew who took charge of the announcement. So it's the announcement that caused the panic. That means there was, at some point midway down the line, there was a miscommunication or no communication at all between the pilots of the aircraft and the cabin crew, which of course raises another kind of concern. Why would the aircraft cabin crew not communicate with the pilot? It is a professional code that before you make announcement, first and foremost, you should be able to, confer with the pilots to ascertain the update of the information you're passing out to the passengers. So it leaves room for Nigerians to wonder what exactly is happening on the airline. But of course, it also raises a question and concern for the airline to look into its internal mechanisms to ensure that this kind of incident doesn't happen again. Nigerians are, reacting on different lines. Some are saying this was not necessary for, the shutting down of the airline or the suspension of the airline that has been moved by the regulatory, agency. But then on the other hand, many are saying maybe it's a first time and it's time for us to begin to mete out stiffer punitive measures or sanctions just to make people understand the seriousness of every incident that happened. For all we know, this is one of many incidents. It might just become a regular if nothing, serious is done about it to mitigate the problems of future occurrences of such incidences. So it's it's a funny incident, it's a sorry incident, but we do hope that, Festus Keyamo will be able to sort this out. But we'll also say in reacting to this that Festus Keyamo has said that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is going to be the one to take the decision on the national carrier, Nigerian Air. Of course, Nigerian Air has been a controversial story. Remember the drama that Nigerians woke up to during the end of the previous administration and all the controversy that, surrounded the unveiling of the national carrier, which of course at this moment is yet to be solved or resolved. We do hope that when President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, rises to the responsibility of taking a decision on the national carrier, it will be something that Nigerians will be proud of. Remember that when Festus Keyamo first came on board, one of the things he did was direct for the suspension of the national carrier. He said a lot of things that happened, that were still a mystery to the government of Nigeria, that was still a mystery to the people of Nigeria, that was still a mystery as far as the national carrier is concerned. And Nigerians haven't forgotten in the, the controversy also surrounding some of the huge amount of money and expenses that have been made in the process of getting the project kick-started. So apart from the investigation, apart from the probe, Nigerians would also expect that before President Ahmed Bola Tinubu puts pen to paper in taking a decision or a stand as far as the national carrier is concerned, all of the gray areas would have been attended to. People who have been found to have pilfered from the public treasury, extensively and decisively dealt with within the provisions of the law. And of course, whatever stands the president takes should be in the interest of, national unity and growing the Nigerian aviation sector.
Well, we need to look at it, how we can grow the Nigerian aviation sector and also stabilize it. Stability is one of the biggest conversations we have. There's quite a number of activities in terms of upgrades going on. They are moving the flights to the airplanes, I beg your pardon, to, the MMIA and all of those things. So there's things on ground, but let's make sure that in the overall it is safe for commuters, and is also the profit margin it comes in very well. Remember that I think it was last week where we were having conversations around the fact that the international agencies are complaining of how much of their money is trapped in the Nigerian system with regards to unrepatriated funds. I mean, the IATA is saying running into the billions, they're not able to take out their money. So there's a lot of balancing to be done in the aviation sector. Top of which is, safety of, passengers when they come, and let's let the aviation sector not become a dump ground for mishap. But we'll move away from that. There's been lots of controversy in Ondo State as a result of the fact that the state governor, Akeredolu, has been ill for some time. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu has been ill for some time, and even upon his return back into the country, a lot of issues just seems to have stirred up, and it's become more tough. But of course, we see the fact that today, being Tuesday, there is a move for lawmakers within the state to meet, and there is a likelihood that the deputy governor may be declared the acting governor of the state in the person of Ayedetiwa, of course. But recently there was a meeting, a peace meeting with President Bola Tinubu and members of the Ondo State House of Assembly, of course, with regards to the polity in the state. Now, of course, we see that some of the major issues on the Assembly agenda for their meeting today's plenary is the consideration of whether or not to declare the state deputy governor Lucky Ayedetiwa as the acting governor following the long absence of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu. Now, the House plans to sit today, and Ayedetiwa is being considered. But now, this is part of outcomes of the meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, of course, there's limited expansion into the issue. Now we will just have to keep our fingers crossed at the end of today's plenary in Ondo State to see if Deputy Governor Lucky Ayedetiwa is going to be declared as the governor. But we know that Governor Rotimi Akeredolu's health has been really in the woods couple of months, and of course it's going to be affecting the policy of the state, execution of, you know, state orders, projects, and all of those things. The controversy has lingered. It's been quite a, you know, a heated one between the duo, but since, you know, they took it to the table of the president, more like the father of the nation, let's see, you know, what he would decide. From their meeting, it looks like a consideration to declare Ayedatiwa as, you know, acting governor was reached, but that will be decided at plenary today.
Well, it's only Nigeria that you see very ugly on serious trends unfolding, and it would take some kind of high-powered meeting and negotiations and deliberations before a decisive stand is taken. It literally looks like this is the only country where we politicize everything when it comes to leadership, when it comes to, you know, delivering dividends of democracy. Akeredolu has been sick for more than a year now, still running. And then imagine leaving the country for almost 7 months and going on what would we call that, sick leave or whatever, while the governance of the state suffers, while, you know, salaries of staff remain unpaid, arrears of staff remain unpaid, issues of governance remain unattended to. And then you have not discovered or realized as an individual that your illness is not only affecting you, but is also affecting the state, and do the right thing, which is either resigning or ceding power to your deputy in the acting capacity. Now, these are certain things that people who are forward-thinking would have done. Politicians, leaders who are forward-thinking would have naturally do without necessarily waiting for crisis to erupt in the state before, you know, those decisions are taken. We see every move. There's been different moves in, you know, Ondo State. We see groups such as Take It Back movement who have consistently asked Akeredolu to either resign or be sacked. There have been different protests, different letters, different movement by people in the state still calling for one thing. Now, one would ask, what is the essence of Akeredolu sitting as the governor of the state when he's completely unable and incapable of functioning as a leader at those material times, when his health has gotten the better part of him? And as far as his personality is concerned, the governor that the Ondo people, you know, elected, you know, is no longer the governor that is in power as it stands. So the honorable thing to have, you know, been done would have been for Akeredolu to understand that, yes, unfortunately, his health has taken the better part of him. And as far as serving the people, which of course he swore an oath to, is concerned, he should have stepped aside and allowed somebody who is, you know, still in his state of right health to take over the affairs of the state. Although people would hope that as the State Assembly meets, they'll be able to resolve the issue. But in the event that they don't, then we never can tell what is going to happen in the state. I mean, workers are already tired of being owed several months of salaries and arrears. The people are tired that the issue of governance are not being met, and a lot of all this drama and uninteresting, you know, event unfolding in the state. It doesn't speak well of the leadership of the state. It doesn't speak well of the people. It's like literally there are no persons in the state who understand the importance of governance. Neither are there people who are committed to, you know, the growth of the people of the state. But of course, we also saw that, you know, about 3 days ago, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, you know, weathered into, you know, the issue in the political crisis, of course, between Akeredolu Rotimi and Lucky Ayedatiwa, his deputy. Of course, the chieftain of the All Progressive Congress, you know, had a 5-hour power meeting where they talked about, you know, the battling ill health of the governor and how and what needs to be done, you know, to return sanity to Ondo State. But we have to wait and see how this is going to unfold here. But of course, these are part of the reasons Nigerians will say the politicians are greedy, they're selfish, they are not there for the interests of the people. Because, I mean, an average person, even in your private company, when your health is taking the best part of you, even if you don't relinquish that power completely, you temporarily designate that power to somebody who will be in charge, not trying to rule a state from your sickbed when you can barely take care of yourself.
Well, it's a serious issue, and we must say, you know, it's a pity for Governor Akeredolu at this time with regards to how much he's had to struggle with his health. But then the governance of Ondo State must continue so that everything runs, you know, as it ought to. Let the state not be dragged backward, and that is why it's not like they want to, if at all this is going to be possible, because the conversation that also came out of the presidency, out of their meeting, is the fact that Akeredolu is going to be sustained as governor. So at this time, yes, Akeredolu is reserved as governor. The whole move to impeach will not be there anymore, and then his deputy may take up as the acting governor, so that we know that this person is on site, is available, health and mind, to be able to take decisions for the state. We do hope that the issue does not skyrocket into any other thing. Remember that among the lawmakers in Ondo states, there began to be a faction, those that were for Akeredolu versus Ayedetiwa. So now it's important that the State House is able to bring the people to a common resolution for the common good of the people of Ondo State. But today is the day that we'll be awaiting the verdict of plenary session from the Ondo State House of Assembly. Let's see what they decide in the better interest of the state. But let's move forward. Guinness World Record became a thing last year. Is that last year? Early this year, last year, where we had Hilda Basi clinch on cookathon. She did actually cook for 100 hours, but then GWR certified her for about over 80 hours. And for a couple of months, she bore that title for the longest individual cooking for several hours. But now, of course, I'm saying that to say again, with that, there has been a spike of interest in breaking more records for GWR. It feels like, GWR literally would have to open a special book for Nigerians breaking, the record. And it's been on. Even our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, declared interest that he would like to be identified in the Guinness World Record. It has to mean that there is something that goes there. But this is about Eniola Subie, who is a student of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Osun State. Of course, she's attempting to set Guinness World Records for the longest hand clothes washing. That's wash-a-thon. Of course, so far so good. She has surpassed the 50 hours target set. So it was a 50-hour target set, but then we see that she has actually surpassed it. Now, the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Administration of her school, university, said Professor Abayomi, I beg your pardon, Daramola, paid a solidarity visit. Of course, she's a 200 level student of linguistics and African languages. We've seen that she started the wash-a-thon on Friday afternoon, and as at 8:17 p.m. on Sunday, reached 55 hours, and she continued to push until 12 midnight to pave way for resting periods. Now, of course, we saw several students from our university, Obafemi Awolowo University, from the Students' Union building to, of course, in support of their own different things happening there. This wash-a-thon also seems to have gathered good buzz in terms of the crowd, people coming out, different artists, brand standing alongside with her for her to get this done. But we see Nigerian youth wishing to break new grounds and doing visionary things and put more like writing their names in the sands of time. Now, of course, we see the fact that Eniola decided to go through the task to complete 60 hours. And also, of course, so that whatever they deduct, it will still land her on several good hours. This is us celebrating Eniola at this point for moving on this particular fate. I remember that just after Hilda Basi, there were all sorts of mindless, suggestions on the internet about, records people wanted to break. But some of these things are, really commendable. How much of our skin is going to peel as a result of this washing for 60 hours, the fatigue and all. But this is good. I think we should also say that it is promoting hygiene. Wear clean clothes so that you don't suffocate another person when you enter a...
When you enter what?
When you enter
don't tell me you had that experience recently. but seriously, I think there is one thing we need to admit to: the fact that Hilda Basi's cookathon that happened sometime in May paved the way for a lot of Nigerians. Like literally Nigerians, it seems Nigerians were not aware of, the Guinness Book of Record, before Hilda Bassi's, brought it to bear. And so after that, it looks like literally everybody, wants to get on the bandwagon and do the thing. I remember conversations have been flying everywhere. People are saying, Nigerians are saying, well, Guinness World Record should better be prepared to have a lot more of Nigerians coming on, smashing records that has been existing and setting up new ones that have not been in existence. I mean, like literally you're looking at a country whose youths do anything and everything legit. Not talking about the illegal ones though. Do everything and anything legit under very hard circumstances to survive and make a living. Now imagine what they will go when they realize that.
It's not part of our problem.
No, seriously. So it's going to be something that people literally do for fun, and also, of course, for the history that will be left behind. So it's a great thing. But I move away from Guinness World Record. I'm still thinking about what to break though, until we get to that point. But we see that the CJN, Justice Kayode Ariwola, wants the Nigerian law to be amended to stop most cases at the appeal court. Now, the CJN spoke at on the background of the enormous workload that the 10-member Supreme Court justices currently grapples with. Of course, with many civil and political cases lingering for years before determination. Now, Kayode Ariwola is advocating for the Nigerian Constitution to stop most cases, of course, from getting to the Supreme Court. Now, one of these conversations, recall the case from, I think, Imo State that recently surfaced that has been in the court for 13 years. A political case bordering on candidacy. And now we ask a question. In the event that this case is decided upon, and then the person gets to win, what would that mean for democracy? What would that mean for leadership? What would that mean for the administration of the state? Now, we've also had conversations about the fact that cases are lingering for the longest time, that you have political cases and it lingers up to the point that people who were fighting for those cases get to leave office. They finish their 4-year tenure. Maybe luckily or blessed by the people or the favored of the people, they get to go through another 4 years. 8 years is gone. But the case that was instituted against them for the very first 4-year tenure is still in court. And peradventure, the second case that was instituted during the second 4 years, still in court, unattended to. They have finished their first 4, their second 4, and they're out of the system, probably moving to a higher, political career. And yet these cases have not been decided upon. In the event that these cases get decided upon in favor of the opponent, what would that mean for democracy? So a lot of Nigerians would cite Justice Ariwola, but then the conversation has never been about justices reducing to 10, which of course by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we should have 21 justices being able to, preside over the different cases. But of course also, this brings up a whole new level of conversation. Remember, we've been told that not necessarily, you don't need to, it's not every case that you head to court. I mean, there are other avenues through which we can handle differences when it comes to fighting for rights, when it comes to seeking justice, when it comes to taking back a mandate. I think one of the conversations we've had here, and we're still hoping to get somebody from that agency, is the alternative dispute resolution, where you don't necessarily go through the rigorous processes of heading to the court, appearing in and out of court, and of course the delays and setback. People can actually utilize this other avenue. And I think if Justice Ariwola were to be advised, or we should be advising Justice Ariwola right about now that maybe he has a CJN of Nigeria, he needs to also give priority to helping Nigerians understand that apart from the law court, there is the alternative dispute resolution where you can actually also have your cases heard and dealt with, and it saves time. It saves you the drama of the courthouse. I know some Nigerian lawyers will not stand for it, because there you're not looking at charging lawyers fee. You're not looking at lawyers appearing to defend you. Probably you might take one or two your advice from the lawyers, but not when the case is ongoing. But this is another avenue that can help reduce the burden of the petitions or litigations that the court, receive on a daily basis.
It's a strong conversation to have, and just speaking about how people can resolve their issues out of court, because Justice Olukade Ariwola has pointed out that the jury system is overwhelmed even by cases that are not necessary to be on their table. They're also looking into how they can move a bill to see that certain categories of cases end at the appeal court. You can't take it beyond the appeal court. That's something else that they're looking to also review with all of the the end of year activities around the judiciary that they're having at this time. But when just speaking about litigation and how Nigerians are quick to go to the law courts, and of course we have the CJN encouraging Nigerians to embrace alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Now, when we are talking about mechanisms and how we can sort out issues, I remember that, for instance, in the Bible, there is actually a system of how disputes are meant to be handled. So more like we have always had this system, but how many people are really willing? Take it across all religions, be you a Muslim, be you a Christian. I mean, it's more like if you have a problem with your brother, first of all, talk to your brother. If he doesn't hear, take one other brother and add. If he doesn't hear, take it to an elder of the church. If he doesn't hear, get like the whole squad to say that. After that, if you have gone through all of these phases and the issue just seem not to go away, then you can head to the court. I remember one of those verses in the Bible that would say that before your brother takes you to court, try and drag him aside so that you settle that case out of court, so that the jury will not make a big case out of it. These are things that are available in the holy books that we read in several of our religions. Now the question is, how willing are humans to settle issues out of court? And some of that times, for people that are on the erring side, for some people, if you don't take them to court, they don't take you seriously. They think you're just a dog that barks and cannot bite. But then we need to leverage on all of the windows that we have. For instance, the fact that we don't have enough hands, personnel is also an issue in the judiciary system. You don't want them to, out of the fact that they do not have hands, they will judge your case wrong, and it's not in favor of the person who the case ought to be in favor of. So the CJN is literally just saying there needs to be a review in the Nigerian judiciary system, and that goes to a lot of things. In recent times, there's been lots of concerns as to the activity of the judiciary. I think it's Odina Kalu that was asking yesterday whether the jury has become a plaything in the hands of political elite. So these are conversations and rejiggings that, if it's done within the sector, a lot of good will come. But how willing are we to make this move?
Well, when you talk about reforms, it's still about the alternative dispute resolutions that Ariwola has also spoken about. It has to be, like I said earlier, it has to be clear and very straightforward in the kind of advocacy that is going to carry. Because for Nigerians to be able to follow that line of thought, for Nigerians to be able to have the kind of confidence in the alternative dispute resolution court, then there has to be some level of transformation. I remember holding conversations with some learned members of the judiciary, some lawyers, and the conversations around why Nigerians are not utilizing the alternative dispute resolution goes back to the issue of enforcement. As it stands, most states and even within the federation, there seems to be no law enforcing directly, putting punitive measures, maybe an option of jail or other issues when it comes to the verdict or the decision reached, or the breaching of the decision and agreement reached within the alternative dispute resolution court. So if those laws were to be made under the guidance of Justice the CJN Ariwola, and of course enforced by virtue of it being constitutionally stated and drafted and signed into law, enforcing that in the event that there is a decision taken by the alternative dispute resolution and then you breach the decisions, these are the possible fines that have been spelled out by the law. that would, to a large extent, further authenticate and validate what is happening. Because aside from the goodwill of the people involved and the fear of maybe when you fail, you're going to be arrested using the police, which of course, most people would say, is it not police? I'll bail myself. And then, of course, that has all the risks to it. So if we're able to regig the laws that will further embolden and empower the Alternative Dispute Resolution Court, then Nigerians would have a lot more confidence. They would know that, okay, what would take, me months or years to achieve within the Nigerian court, it can take just a couple of days, a couple of weeks. And you're not going to spend, apart from the small stipend you pay for maybe transportation of going to serve the laters or the summon laters and all of that, you don't get to spend a lot more money like you spend in the courtroom, paying your judges, paying everything, and every session, like literally every outing, you're paying court appearance, you're paying judge, lawyer's fee and all of those things. So it would be an avenue that will serve Nigerians better and faster when it comes to getting justice within the confines of the law. But what needs to be done is to regig, is to look at laws and further fine-tune it in a way that will make the system a lot more stronger. And then Nigerians would have the confidence that is required.
Nigerians must have a confidence in the Nigerian judiciary. And with recent events, that has really, really, really eroded. But of course, still on the heel of this, we see the fact that the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, has asked judges to maintain the integrity that the judiciary is known for and remain fair and firm in their judgments. Now, of course, he was speaking, of course, this year's legal year and swearing in of 58 newly conferred senior advocates of Nigeria and Abuja. Francis, that's a whole big conversation there. We have 58 newly conferred senior advocates of Nigeria. How is this going to impact upon the flow of duties within the judiciary? These men and women that have been given this position, some of them, I think about 6 of them academics, how are they going to interpret their roles, and what roles are they going to be given at this time if the CJN is still saying we need to move up and have 21 justices at the Supreme Court out of the 58 persons that have just been promoted and decorated with the sanship? Are there no personnel? Are there no hands from there that can be inculcated so that we see the judiciary system in Nigeria actually move forward? Now we see the fact that he expects every judicial officer to work very hard and also be very honest and cautious to the litigants, witnesses, and members of the bar, and discharge all their judicial functions with all the humility that they can command. This is a holistic independence of the judiciary that Justice Ariwoola is also pushing for. Let's see how we do not have external hands in imposing what a verdict should be, not even suggestively so.
Well, it's going to take the Nigerian judiciary, Justice Ariwoola, a very long time to be able to get Nigerians to trust the system, and that will take series of fair judgment coming from the legal system, the judiciary, before Nigerians would begin to have that confidence. As it stands, the average Nigerian believes that once you have the muzzle, once you have the money, and then you have the connection with who is who, you can obviously tilt the judgment of the court in your favor, and the laws can be interpreted away just to suit the verdict that is given in the favor of the people who have the long legs and the long arms and the connections and the phone numbers and their speed dial to reach out to the powers that be and the movers of the community or the society. But if we get to a point where the judiciary, I know that Ariwoola is saying, the court is going to discharge its duties. Judges must discharge their duties, just live fairly as long as far as the provisions of the Constitution is concerned. But one thing we cannot take away at this point is the fact that the internet, the social media, the media plays a very vital role. And so when, and then you're also talking about the body language, the reactions from the legal practitioners themselves. Okay? So when you see, for instance, a particular case being given a verdict to, and then the interpretation given by the honorable senior justices in the courtroom seems to be a completely opposite of what even the lawyers themselves had been taught throughout their years of studying law. I mean, it is going to be contradictory. It would be one thing for, you know, the lawyers to get to see the different things happening and then agree in total with what, you know, is coming from the law court. But when, for instance, that court verdict is given and you find that majority of Nigerian lawyers are even at a loss as to the explanation of the law and the application of that law as defined and stipulated or given out by the justices of that court, it raises a whole lot of concerns. And until we get to that point where a verdict comes and a significant number of lawyers who are not of the opposition, generally across board, you know, fall behind the interpretation of the law, then we would say the judiciary still has a long way to go. But this is where we place a pause on a conversation, of course, headed to the developing stories.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Of course, still talking issues happening in the country this morning. Lots of things happening in the judiciary, but we do hope that it is interpreted in the best way that can serve the nation and the people. The woman of the law is blindsided to emotions, to money, to all kinds of things. Let the worries of most, Nigerians at this time not remain with the fact that is the Nigerian judiciary even worth it? I think another conversation that we must have is that although corruption eats into the fabric of many agencies in the country, that we still have a crop of distinct and different, professionals here and there. But we need a full pack of those kinds of persons to be able to execute their work in these different sectors. Let's see what the impact of 58 new SANs is going to do for the judiciary in the country. Let's also see how the move to have some policy reforms, how it is going to set the jury system better by the nation and by its people. But then, moving on to INEC conversations, the former chairperson of INEC, in the person of Professor Atai Rejega, has been speaking up so loud since last week, and this one is a developing end from that particular story. We see the fact that he called for a review of the electoral process and has expressed concern over the increasing role of the judiciary in determining elected officials. I remember that at the end of these elections that we just completed, part of the strongest conversation was that, is it really the people that are determining who their leaders are? Is it really the votes, or it is the final decision of the court? It's more like we go to the polls and we end up for the final decision at at the court. Literally, these were the words of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu when he said at the end of announcing the result of the presidential election, if you're not satisfied with the result and the proceedings of the election, let's head to court. So the former chairperson, Atai Rejega, professor, is saying this is a major problem. The judiciary should not have such a strong standing to now look like the fourth determining body in the electoral process in Nigeria. Of course, he's looking at several amendments also that should be had in the system to overhaul what's the Electoral Act is saying, what the Electoral Act is saying, and how the elections are going to be carried out going forward. Now he's also calling for a review of how the resident electoral commissioners are being done statewide. Whose particular duty should this be?
Well, it's a serious conversation. When you look at Kano State, for instance, where there is a crisis still, very much actively happening in the state as a result of the court verdict between the sitting governor and the other governor that was, decided upon by the law court. It gives room for concern. It gives room for questioning. It leaves room for a lot of wondering by Nigerians. It's one thing for you to have, the people voting. It's another thing for you to have the court announcing another person, which of course oftentimes goes contrary to what the people had voted or who the people had voted for. The situation playing out in Kano State is one of those practical examples. I mean, we've not forgotten in a hurry the fact that the certified true copy carried a completely different verdict from what came out from the law court, further raising questions and concerns about, the authenticity and the validity or the sincerity of the Nigerian judiciary when such a high-valued document could be, filled with error that is being fed to the public before comments and statements to counter what has been already seen by the public, is given as a way, seen by many as a way of trying to address or remedy the situation that is already in the public space. A lot of conversation still about, the need to reduce the level of cases that still goes to the judiciary. But then that will come down to regigging and restructuring, or should we say reviewing the laws, that guides elections in the country. When you have the electoral law that is being, explained away on different angles, from different point of view, without necessarily recourse to the details and the morality behind it, it puts it a lot of question, and it makes it, subject to interpretation, subject to evidences. And then, of course, remember, the question that Nigerian asks, if the judiciary can make a mistake and give a wrong certified true copy, the same judiciary that has nullified election simply because there was no stamp by INEC. So how do we balance the same thing? You've given a wrong verdict. Of course, in your courtroom, you said the APC person was the authentic declared winner, as opposed to the NNPP candidate. But of course, in the certified true copy that you gave, it was a completely different. It seemed the NNPP candidate got the verdict that he was going to be returned. But it now come out to issue a statement. So what happened to applying that same thing to the argument, offered by INEC, that this, electoral materials that were not stamped could have been an oversight on the part of the ad hoc staff or the part of the INEC officials, and then you completely, overruled on that, while you yourself on the other hand are making a whole lot of mistakes. So it's a long walk from freedom, Nigerians would say, but it's a walk that Nigerians need to walk, and the Nigerian judiciary must take that walk if we are going to have confidence. The crisis happening in Kano State, nobody knows how it's going to turn. The police are on ground. Yes, the security forces are on ground. But how long are they going to be able to contend? In the event that the appeal made by the NNPP, governorship candidate, who at this point in time is still calling for calm in the state, goes still in the way of the APC, what would be the reaction that will happen in Kano? How many lives will we have to waste simply because the Nigerian judiciary has not lived up to its responsibility?
Well, it's a lot of questions. Atahiru Jega, of course, also asked that the judiciary should be depoliticized as with regards to election-related issues, and also part of the conversation that has really plagued the judiciary at this time is the matter of bribery and favoritism to certain kinds of parties, to certain kinds of people. Of course, is also suggesting the amendments to the 2022 Electoral Act. One of the biggest questions is that so far, so good. This Electoral Act has not been used in the way that it was said it was going to. Remember that former President Muhammadu Buhari did actually celebrate the move and the putting together of the Electoral Act. It was meant to be some form of guiding light to a new face of democracy in the country. But as a result of the things we saw February 25, March 18, it's a far cry from what the Electoral Act was proceeded to have held for Nigerians. Now, the question going forward in 2027, is it still going to be the same Electoral Act that is going to be viable? But we see Atahiru Jega also asking that the Electoral Act be amended and tighter legal provisions to safeguard the democratic process. But just like he said, sometimes we have good ideologies and reforms on paper, but we do not go to the extra length on how to implement those things, and that's where the problem usually is. And we see the fact that he, of course, the Kano State case has been a major one, but how do we salvage the situation going on in the judiciary? Just like he said, literally the Electoral Act has been given a new face by the Electoral Act is given a new face and a different interpretation per justice, per judge over a case. You go to Kano State, it is argued in a different issue. You go to another state, another court, another judge is interpreting it in a different way, lawyers are interpreting it the same way. The big question is, what is going on in the judiciary? I know in recent times, more like we've been in conversations where we are talking to learned persons, and they're like, even some of the judgments coming out of the law courts are laughable, and it's a surprise to some of them. I know we are going to be having a strong legal conversation one of these days. Just put two lawyers in the box and let's really try to unravel what the issue right there is. But of course, the issue of INEC Reg, Jega is asking that there also needs to be a review of how these appointments are being carried out within in the country. Now, is this a responsibility that is meant for Mr. President, the presidency? Is it a responsibility that is for the state governors? Are they supposed to be able to have a hand? I was listening to Sai Tekamba Morin the other day, one of the embattled, just recently appointed rec. Of course, that appointment didn't seem to have seen the light of day, but he was explaining how that he's not, he's not partisan, explaining the one time he was trying to actually go for an elected position and he did not go for it, and from then it's been from one appointed duty within the political sphere. Francis is really having a good laugh, but all of these kinds of things, and you're wondering where this is pushing the narrative of the Resident Electoral Commission to. Now, Etika Momorin was reiterating the fact that he has sat over these kinds of duties in other parts of the country before, and it just seems to be where a case of, they're appointing rec and they appointed you to your own state, but the people of the state are saying, you are way too partisan. Your hand is too integral in the politics of the state for you to be sitting over electioneering processes. So it just looks like, Atari Jega is literally sitting down and reviewing all of what INEC has become. I know that he's first of all been bastardized for his own days as, chairman of the agency. Did he do so good? Did he do differently? But you know how you sit down and look at things in retrospect and you're like, man, this is getting worse and terrible by the day. We need to speak up now and do this kind of thing. It just feels like the same thing that the former president Olusegun Obasanjo has been doing in recent times. You can say, he wasn't one of the best presidents in the country, but it looks like hindsight usually would give you more wisdom, and it looks like that's what Jega is also doing at this time for INEC.
Well, just picking back on a conversation, something I shared yesterday, that was shared by one of the journalists, Itamitimi in Akwa Ibom State, writing about the abducted corps members. And a catchphrase or statement that caught my attention. It seems like literally politicians and leaders, when they're outside the corridors of power, when they're not entrusted with the responsibility, they seem to know everything that is wrong in the running of the affairs of the country, the running of the affairs of the state. But once they are elected and given that responsibility, it's like somebody just slapped them on one side of the cheek, and then everything that supposed to be done fly out the other side. And then they spend 4 years, they spend 8 years, and then by the time they leave the office and then come back to say like the ordinary man, that's when they realize, I should have done this, I should have done that, I ought to have done this, but I did not do it. And then they want to go back to power or begin to speak up. I don't know if there is a myth somewhere, whatever it is that keeps people blind to the things they need to do when they're in position of power and authority. I think Nigerian politician definitely needs to wake up. But it's not just about Tekemba Omorenu. There are like 4 resident electoral commissioners that have been accused of being too politically driven, too party engrossed to be given that responsibility.
If you want to run for an office, just go get a card and do that.
Now, that's another conversation. But I know that also, we know that from the National Assembly, the likes of Senator Arlene Dume has also come to say it's not about whether you've been a partisan in partisan politics. It's about the fact that once you're appointed, you distance yourself from everything party politics. But the question of morality everybody would ask is it really possible for somebody who has been actively involved in party politics to look the other way when it comes to favoring his or her party? Now, that's the conversation for another day. But at this point in time, we'll take a pause. And of course, we'll be heading out to the news brief decks where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us around. And when we come back, a lot more we have packaged for you on Rise and Shine. Stay with us.
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of a new board and management team for the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, with effect from December 1st, 2023. According to a statement by presidential spokesman during Gelale on Monday night, the appointments were in compliance with Section 59, subsection 2 of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. Away from that, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, on Monday said President Bola Tinubu will determine the next step for Nigeria Air project. He also argued that it would be irresponsible of the federal government to follow through on a deal that gives monopoly of Nigeria's aviation industry to a foreign entity. Reports say the chances of Nigeria's national carrier, Nigeria Air, beginning operations still hangs in the balance, especially as new details about the contracts resurfaced Monday. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu will present the 2024 budget to the National Assembly tomorrow, Wednesday. This is according to a memo dated November 27, 2023, signed by the Federal Legislature Secretary of Human Resources and Staff Development, Shaibu Maina Burma, on behalf of the clerk to the National Assembly. It contained directive on information to be given about the 2024 budget to be presented by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the joint session of the Senate and the House of Representatives on Wednesday, 29 November 2023. We head straight now to the foreign scene where another 11 Israeli hostages, including 3-year-old twins, have been freed by Hamas tonight. Israel says bringing the total number of released hostages to more than 50. Reports says in exchange, 33 Palestinians were released from Israeli prisons, reportedly including 30 children and 3 women. Meanwhile, just hours before the 4-day truce was due to expire, Qatar said Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 2-day extension. And in sports, Nigeria Football Federation is considering the future of Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro. The coach is likely to be disengaged soon as the search for his replacement has commenced. This is as the technical committee of the federation was not pleased with the performance of the Eagles under the Portuguese and was desperate to hire a local coach. Reports say since taking charge of the Eagles in 2022, Peseiro has won 6 and lost 6 of his 15 matches in the dugout, with the 3-time African champion scoring 31 times with 10 coming in one game against Sao Tome and Principe and conceded 21 goals. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine where we have Francis and Oyai on standby to have a wonderful morning.
Government. Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in counting.
broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
back and thanks for still being here. It's Rise and Shine, the Tuesday edition. We're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Kwabam State, Nigeria. We've already had some conversations before we went to the news brief desk with Mary Joseph, and some of the issues that we've looked at this morning borders on aviation safety. We saw the Minister of Aviation calling in for a meeting of heads of agencies within the aviation sector. This one, we've also looked at the fact that the Ondo State House of Assembly is going to be sitting, and at the end of plenary today, the Deputy Governor Ayedetiwa might be announced as the acting governor. We've also looked at the fact that there is a certain young lady in the name of Enyola who has gone to break a Guinness World Record, washing upwards of 60 hours so far. Still serious conversations about the Nigeria Air, the carrier that conversations around was stood down initially upon appointment by Festus Kiyamo. But in recent times, he has said that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to make a decision in that regard. We've had conversations around the Nigerian judiciary, the fact that 58 new senior advocates in Nigeria have been appointed by the CJ and Ariwola, who has also urged the judiciary to maintain status of integrity. These are some of the conversations we've had. Former chairman of INEC, Atahiru Jega, has been calling out the federal government and the independent National Electoral Commission and just talking about certain loopholes. You will go straight ahead to our YouTube channel at Spectrum Television and the rest of the social media handles that you can find at Spectrum TV Live to be able to get a full detail of some of these conversations that we've had so far. At this point, we'll be moving to Daily Spotlight, where we'll bring you information from the front pages of our national dailies.
Well, on Daily Spotlight, we're starting out with the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. This morning, on the front page of Vanguard, we see the kicker there. Justice says, fight back. We can't replace law with emotions. That's coming from the CJ. And says judges won't be afraid of intimidation with independence. Courts third highly at rule of law in Nigeria, questionable since 1999. Of course, this closes NJC ready to receive petitions against election tribunal judges. Swears 58 new SANs. Stories on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Judicial decisions can affect FDI. CBN governor. That's stories on page 37. That's foreign direct investment there. We see federal government jacks up 2024 budget to 27.5 trillion naira. The story is on page 9. Tinubu reappoints Melekari, Group CEO of NNPC Limited. Story is on page 13. FEC votes 3.23 billion naira for explosives, narcotics detection scanners in 5 airports. Stories on page 8. ASU Kona warned government against new varsities, say existing ones malnourished. The stories on page 9. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Moving on from the Vanguard, our next paper will be the Daily Trust. Big story there says, we will never be overwhelmed by mobs, says CJN. Judges must avoid embarrassing judiciary, says Yadudu. Courts deciding election winners bad for polity, says PDP elder. Seems like the judiciary is coming under a lot of fire. We also see here FEC raises 2024 budget as Tinubu presents 27.5 trillion naira tomorrow, being Wednesday. We also see here fresh protest hits Kano over governorship dispute as police arrest 7. Tinubu reappoints Kyari as NNPCL GCO. Names Akinyelure board chairman. Francis, this is a big worry. Okay. Let's just move on. We'll talk about that in a bit. States, local governments cry for development despite sharing 8.8 trillion naira in 2 years. States and local governments cry for development. We see Delta, Rivers, Akwa Ibom get lion's share. CSOs flay leaders' failure. Seek accountability. Fund includes salaries, overheads, and others. Amounts enough to build 16,000 hospitals, 4,000 kilometers road. Review of what the income of the country has been. FAAC amount shared by states and local governments in 2 years. There's an entire chart right there that you can look at, and that's what we have on the front page of Daily Trust.
Well, that takes us to the front page of we head to the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. On the front page of Punch, the kicker that says Tinubu presents budget Wednesday. Fed okays $1 billion loan. That story is on page 21. Federal government targets 18 trillion naira revenue. Raises exchange rate benchmark from 700 per dollar to 750 naira per dollar. Speaker, opposition lawmakers assure Nigerians of proper budget screening to grow ministers. Of course, we head on to attack on judges. Public sentiments can displace law. CJ and NBA. Stories on page 2. Tinubu names Akinyelere NNPC chair. Reappoints Kyari CEO. The stories on page 8. President swears in 8 permanent secretaries preside over FEC meeting. The stories on page 23 this morning. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
We'll take a very last paper this morning, and that is going to be the Nation newspaper. The Nation this morning, big story there says Akeredolu Ayedatiwa peace agreement heads for collapse. Deputy governors, loyalists pushing lawmakers to make him acting governor. I stand on Abuja deal, speaker insists. We also see here banks ready for recapitalization. Nigeria Air project for review, page 11 on the Nation. National Assembly under pressure over 2024 budget. President to present 27.5 trillion naira appropriation bill tomorrow. It's going to be a big day at the Senate. Shaibu, I am intimidated. My allocation seized. Deputy Governor joins 2024 race. Page 12 is where you can find details. We also have a Supreme Court will get full 21 justices. Ariwola pledges. Reduce cases at Apex Court. We did 90 kilometers of roads in 1 year, says Osun government. Adeleke on holiday in Thailand. More like the governor is finding himself for doing some good work. We also have here Union Bank deletes shares from NGX. Akinyelure is NNPCL's board chairman, page 11. National Assembly, okay, we've taken that. We also see here Tinubu orders massive fixing of federal roads. Reports bad roads via dedicated phone lines. Okay, and that's what we have on the front page of the Nation.
Well, that takes us to the end of Delhi Spotlight. A lot of stories on the front pages of our national dailies this morning. And of course, you can read them up for yourself. Very interesting story. But we'll take a short time out here. And of course, when we return, we'll be returning with a guest. And remember, the federal government is moving as a measure of solving the food scarcity in the country to subsidize farming inputs, agricultural inputs, including seedlings, of course, as a result of the loan advanced by the African Development Bank. We'll also look at the analysis as far as the statement made by the former INEC chairman, Professor Tahiri Jega, is concerned. Just stay with us.
society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories on how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on Star Times DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
broadcast and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Thanks for still being there. Of course, this is still Rise and Shine. We apologize for not being able to bring on our guests. Some technical issues getting in the way this morning. And our guest who's on standby seems not to be able to join us for the conversation we intended to look into. But we know that one of the biggest conversations on the table this Tuesday morning is the judiciary and the role they have played in the polity of Nigeria and democracy. We're also looking at how on the front pages of our national dailies, we've mostly seen the CJ and Olukayode Aruwola really cry out, different issues, clamoring the biggest to be the fact that they cannot replace the law with emotions. More like there's been a lot of sensationalism with regards to expectations of judgments out of the judiciary in recent times, and they're saying that they cannot play to the whim and caprices of things written on the internet. Of course, that stands as a basic truth, but the question that Nigerians are asking the Nigerian judiciary at this time is, are you actually really working within the dictates of the Nigerian constitution and the guidelines of your profession? In recent times, it looks like the judiciary is dancing to different tunes. How independent is the Nigerian judiciary is the question the Nigerians are asking, and it must also come to some Nigerians as a surprise, as we see that personnel issue is also becoming a thing even in the Nigerian judiciary, as opposed to the number of persons that we have in this country in terms of population. And then we also look at the number of persons that the university system in Nigeria churns out every year as graduates across different fields. And over the years, people have been, rising in their in the cadre of their profession. How come across different sectors, across different fields, we always would turn around and we are decrying the state of lack of hands for these different duty roles? Yes, there has been a spate of migration happening in the country, but is it strong enough to expose different sectors to the lack of quality hands to take on these responsibilities? Taking our conversation back to the Nigerian judiciary, men and women who have served the jury several years and have a track record, how hard is it for us to get 21 justices to fill up these vacant positions in the Nigerian judiciary, looking at the Supreme Court to be specific? So a question of personnel. Now that is going to take us to asking the federal government or the heads of these different establishments, how do we intend to answer the question of personnel issues across different sectors? If we do not have requisite hands, what exactly is happening? Do we now look at a human resource strategy of training the available hands so that we do not have the lacuna, the gap that we are beginning to experience across different sectors? If the judiciary is saying the same thing, the health sector is saying the same thing, education sector is saying the same thing, it means that we have a bigger problem on our hands. And the federal government, in tandem with all of these agencies, must begin to look at how we can develop personnel. It means that human capital development becomes a strong necessity for the federal government, a strong necessity for the state government and public-private organizations also. We can't be running a country of over 200 million people and not have people to do the work. And then when we talk about the fact that Nigerians migrate, leave the country, and are some of the best resource persons available across different fields, you cannot therefore tell us that the hands that we have in the country cannot get the work done, because this same number of persons, if they leave Nigeria, are getting excellent reports, across different fields. So it's a big problem. But how is, Olukayode Aruwola going to sanitize the judiciary and all of this concern? Because most Nigerians are thinking it's going beyond coming to say, oh, we are not going to respond to all the ODs raised on, social media, all the sensationalism that Nigerians are trying to bring to the law. Nigerians are saying, if you're going to act by the law, make sure that it is clear and transparent in the proceedings of, litigations. Another big issue that the judiciary, which is on the front burner of conversations nationwide this morning, seems to be the fact that they are overwhelmed with litigation. Now, CJ and Aruwola is saying there are cases within the law courts that have no business being there. And there are some of them that have expanded over the years because they do not have hands on deck to be able to adjudicate justice. But when we are looking at the fact that certain cases that should not be in court, they're also looking at how they can review the guidelines of the judicial practice in Nigeria to make sure that certain cases stop at the appeal court and does not travel all the way to the Supreme Court. And that now another question and another issue being raised here is the fact that civil education is on an all-time low, because it looks like Nigerians do not know the alternative routes for conflict resolution of litigations. What other means can they use to resolve crisis or conflict without having to head on to the law courts? Because now CJ Nariwola is saying we need to be able to take advantage of other avenues instead of always coming to the law court and overburdening the system that already does not have hands. So the big question is going to be, what are all the other alternative routes and how effective will it be? Looking at the crime, looking at the citizens, looking at some of the cases that are brought before the law court. And we know that it was upon the February 25 election where we also saw the judiciary trying to work within a specific window to give, results and judgments on certain cases. That should probably be spread across all other kinds of cases in law courts. Francis cited an example of a particular election petition that has been in the court for 13 years. Now, we know that an average office term says 4. Someone does too good, they do 8 years. When your case has been in the court for 13 years, are you still really expecting a judgment in favor? If the court, by any kind of win of judicial doctrine, upholds your election, where exactly are you going to go and serve? So these are the kinds of issues that we are looking at in the judiciary at this time. Of course, we have promised that this week we are going to have a roundtable conversation with lawyers. Let's look into what exactly is happening in the Nigerian judiciary. But it goes to say that there is work to be done across different sectors. Something that has been recently alarming was as Nigerians waited for the results of the election petition tribunal, and Nigerians were saying all eyes on the judiciary. That slang might seem to have gone down in on the social media, but it is a real case right now with the Nigerian judiciary. We're still really looking at what the jury is becoming in this country. But that's much we can actually talk about this morning. More questions, hoping that the federal government and the leaders and the heads of all of these agencies will bring us some answers that will move us forward as a nation. Once again, we sincerely apologize for not being able to come up with a guest because of some technical hitches. We hope to put our house together and bring you a more robust show tomorrow. But until then, thanks for choosing Spectrum Television. Thank you for choosing Rise and Shine, and let's do this again tomorrow. My name remains Uyai, and you can have a very blessed day. Bye-bye.